1987. Samuel knew the Briarcliff estate was old, but he thought it just gave the place a certain charm. The vines that crawled their way up the cracked brick and stone gave the building an almost enchanting air. The ancient-looking statues in the front yard were discolored and stained by age, but Thomas thought it made them more interesting. After all, they would film movies here one day. He'd probably have admired it more if he wasn't so nervous. Samuel had never really told anyone about his issue. It had started to manifest when he was 20, just a few weeks after his birthday. He'd gotten up to get a drink of water and had seen his long-dead grandmother strolling the halls of his house. That he could have chalked up to a dream. And he did. But it kept happening, and with people he didn't know. It had gotten so bad, he'd started thinking some of the people were real. Alive. If he heard "Hey, who are you talking to?" one more time, he was going to lose it if he hadn't already. There were a few people milling about in the front of the old estate, but they didn't acknowledge Samuel much. One gave him a sidelong glance, but quickly returned to picking flowers from the bushes. Even the person at the front desk took her time before she looked up to Samuel. "Can I help you?" Samuel paused. He felt stupid. Why was he here, he thought as he said to the lady behind the maple desk, "I'd like to check myself in." The woman raised an eyebrow. "We don't get that often." "Name?" "Samuel." "All right, there's some paperwork I need you to fill out." "Of course, there is always paperwork," Samuel said as he checked the boxes on the paper, with the number 2 pencil, finally breaking the lead. Samuel followed the woman into a side room. It looked like something directly out of the 60s, but considering that when a lot of these places were built, he didn't think much of it. He took a seat in one of the bright orange chairs. The woman handed him another stack of papers. "Just bring them back up when you're done." Samuel nodded. A lot of the packet were questions about him and his life. Writing out things he'd been so careful to avoid speaking out was cathartic. All the earlier nervousness faded. He felt good. It wasn't until the 3rd page that he noticed the year stamped at the top of the pages. 1987? Thomas almost laughed. This place was really going for that old-style aesthetic. When he finished, he returned to the front desk. "You might want to think about getting new stationery." The front desk woman nodded absently. "Oh yeah. It says the year is still 1987. What a surprise." Samuel frowned. "She's not very friendly, now is she?" "Well, you're in luck. We've got a few open rooms. Do you need someone to bring your things?" "Nope." Samuel pointed to his backpack. "I've got all I need." The woman hummed, grabbed a key from the wall, and waved for him to follow. As they ascended to the higher floors, Samuel was surprised at how dirty the whole place was. The walls were stained black with dirty handprints and the floor was covered in dust. Piles of used cups and plastic bags had been swept into the corners. Samuel suddenly felt less sure he was in the right place. The hallways were a little cleaner. A patient and nurse glanced his way as he passed. Neither spoke, just continued to stare. Samuel waved. Both turned away. In the background he could hear children laughing. "Were they playing?" "Here is where you'll be staying." The woman pushed open the door to the room labeled 210. "A nurse will come by to show you around and give you the schedule and rules." "You aren't on any medication, are you?" He shook his head. "Get settled in, then." Tossing his backpack on the bed, Thomas turned to the large single window in his room. It was, thankfully, one of the unbroken ones. The view overlooked the courtyard and Samuel breathed a sigh of relief. Sure, the place was a little dirty, but it wasn't like he could complain. There weren't many psychiatric hospitals around here and he didn't have the means to move. He was lucky to find this one and, in the end, his sanity was more important than being picky about handprints and a few dusty steps. Besides, his room was clean enough. Samuel finished unpacking and then waited around in his room for the nurse to show up. 10 minutes, 30 minutes. An hour. Time felt like it was slipping by. He was growing restless. Did they forget I was here? He had just showed up. He peeked out into the hallway and saw nothing but the tile floors. Unable to sit still anymore, Samuel opened the door and wandered out into the hallway. Hello. Silence. Samuel suddenly felt his blood run cold. This place hadn't been so quiet when he'd first walked through. Even if it was just the sound of the patrolling nurse's footsteps or opening and closing doors. But now it was silent. Dead silent. Samuel moved to the end of the hall, trying to see into the other rooms. Unfortunately, the glass had clouded over and he couldn't see a thing. He knocked on a few, but got no response. I'll go check with the front desk, he told himself. But when he reached the top of the stairs, he looked down and froze. His heart thundered in his ears. No. There was only one set of footprints in the dust. And children played on the outside. As Samuel peered out the large doors of the estate, a young man approached the confused man and said, "Sir, what are you doing at the Emery West Orphanage?" Stepping back, Samuel asked the man, "What year is it?" The man started to walk off, saying it's 2011 and just another day here at Druid Hills in Atlanta, Georgia. Stay paranoid, my friends.